So this isn't like a comparison video. This is more of a kind of geeky tech, everything you can do to a plane kind of video. Model year changes, differences between each type. This is a 79 182 and this is a 1962 Cessna 180, but both are the best versions of what they can be and are covered in STCs and 337s and modifications, and we're going to go through what they all are. So it's like, we're not going to fly them and race them and compete them against each other. I'm going to go over, and if you like geekiness, this is the video. So this is Mark at Skywagons University, getting really into the name and rank and serial numbers of these two Cessnas. So the first one of the two, a quick overview of both and then details on each. The first one of the two is a 62 Cessna 180E, and if you've been paying attention to my videos, you'll get, it can't be a 62 because it's got 3 windows. Well, we'll talk about that too. MT prop, 520 engine, Garmin equipment, modifications, stole kits, upgrades, a rebuild. This plane was built, we'll go into the detail who built it. Okay, and over here we have a 79 182, which arguably is one of the more desirable years because it's got the wet wing, first year of no bladders, but also oversized gear, upgraded engine, Garmin leather, beautiful paint interior, stole kits. I mean, these are the two versions of themselves that, I mean, everybody can buy 182, everybody can buy 180, but these are like excellent versions of themselves, and I'll show you why. So let's start over there with that one and get into some detail. So this 180, it's a 62 180E, and it's been extensively, I've got to carefully word this, it's been extensively renovated from the ground up by a company in Washington that will build you a brand new Skywagon to order. This was one of their kind of first planes. It wasn't a ground up rebuild. It wasn't new skins, new rivets from scratch, zero-time airframe. It was an extensive renovation, and the company then was called the Aircraft Remanufacturing Company. So think of it as the other company that you're thinking of, and it's probably that company, but I can't say it because of trademark reasons. But so the upgrades on it are, it's obviously got an MT 3-blade prop on it with a nickel plated edge. It's got a P-Ponk, actually it's a North Star. It's the first North Star 0470-50 that was produced after P-Ponk sold to North Star. So it's a balanced and blueprinted North Star 470-50, which is a 520 cubic inch engine. It's a turbo 206 engine that's been carbureted and derated from being turbocharged, so it's normally aspirated now, and it's been ported, polished, ceramic coated, balanced, everything you can do to it by Lycon in Visalia, and it's 300 horsepower. So it's a 300 horsepower carbureted 6-cylinder Continental in there, and you can feel it when you fly it. And obviously with that very light 3-bladed MT composite prop on it, the instantaneous, the RPM response when you rev it is bam, instant, and it takes off such a short distance. We're not going to fly them today, we're just going to look over the details. So, working backwards, people who know this airframe will spot giveaway things like this and think, float kit, V-brace, this reinforced skin, double rivets, closer rivets down the doors. So I'm going to get geeky in this video, so if you like geek, watch. It does not have a float kit, but it's got so many skins on it that reinforce a float kitted plane for its strength and its integrity, but it isn't float kitted. So a lot of all this was rebuilt, reskinned, replaced, put on, upgraded. Wings off, you know, obviously fuselage empty, and we'll do the insides separately. We'll do the outsides and then we'll do the insides. So working back, 62 180s don't have 3 windows. But just to get technical with it, the last 2-window straight-tailed 182 was a 59. 182, I meant to say that. In 60, the 182's got the 3rd window, the raised roofline and the sloped tail. But in 60, at the same time, the 180s got the raised roofline, but because of the identity of them was a 2-window plane, they left them with 2 windows, but they put the 2 windows in a 3-window airframe. So 60, 61, 62 and 63 180s have just a window here, no window here, but the raised roofline, and by raised I mean it's almost flat. Early 180s, pre-60 180s with 2 windows have the roofline comes down a bit here and then evens off. So when you add a window to those, it's like it wasn't really meant to have it, but when you added a window to a 60, 61, 62, 63, it makes it like a 64 and newer. So that belongs there. And all this was put in, all these skins, ribs, all this, everything that's in those is in this now. So this airframe is basically like an 81 180 or an 85 185. So third side window, baggage door, and upgraded, see this, the door handles? Those door handles are from a much later plane, the no slam doors. Been added. Same with the push button knobs on the baggage door, that's been added. It doesn't have the big dorsal fin, because that would be factory installed on a 75 or newer 180 with a float kit. And very strangely, on a 62 180E like this, it's the only year, and I don't know why, and nobody can answer the question why, it's the only year that if you do put that fin on, you don't get the gross weight increase. It's some glitch in the serial number run or whatever, but apparently they're not eligible for it. So this has the low dorsal fin. 185's dorsal fins are here, and float kitted 180s from 75 to 81 are here. So this is the normal 180 tail. Handles have been added. Jack screw access has been added. That was on 81 and newer 185s, and 81 and newer, and 81 is the only year of 180 with jack screw access on it. Rubber leading edge on the tail. Bigger, better, nastier Alaska bush wheel, tail wheel, hub. Every light on it is LED, every beacon, and you'll see inside there's a variety of settings in it. It's unbelievable. So outside, just modernized. Everything they could possibly have to make it from an early to a late plane put on, and not just stuck on and painted, upgraded integrally and structurally in the fabric of the airplane. So it's almost like a new one, but because it isn't a zero-timed airframe, it still has 6,700 hours on it on paper, although there are lots of pieces on it from that era, but there's much more pieces on it that are newer than that. So let's have a look at the other airframe. Are we keeping rolling? Okay, let's roll. So the 182. It's a 79 182Q, and just to remind everybody of the model year changes, there are videos on the detail of this, but the Qs are 79, sorry they're not, haha, you nearly got me, 77, 78, 79, 80, those 4 years are 182Qs, and they are the years that went through the most changes of any of the runs. People think, oh, it's an R model, they're all the same, oh, it's a P model, they're all the same. Qs in those 4 years, 77 is 12 volt, acrylic enamel paint, 78 is polyurethane paint from the factory, 24 volt. The U engine is in 77, 78, 79. That's an 0470U, and so those engines are designed to be 230 horsepower at 2400 RPM, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute because this plane is a particularly interesting subject about that. Carrying on with the Qs, 79, so 77 is 12 volt, 78 is 24 volt, 79 is 24 volt, wet wing. So this plane has 92 gallons inside the metal tank is the wing, no bladders in it. So they went from 84 gallons with 78 usable with bladders to 92 gallons wet wing, 88 usable. And if you want a real geekiness, if that wet wing is on a 180 or a 185 and it's a tail dragger, there's some air at the front of the tank, so it's not 92 gallons, it's 88 gallons. Anyway, but if you level it up, it's 92 gallons. So what I was saying about this U engine, the U was designed to be 260 horsepower, and it was put in as planes in 1977. And they revved it and went, whoa, 260 horsepower, you can't have 260 horse. The type certificate for the 182 is 230 horse. So they governed it. So it's literally prop pitch stops, governor, 2400 230 horse, 182, off you go. So it's an engine that wants to be 260 but can only be 230. And if you think it's governed at 2400 and you cruise at 2400, it's almost like it's fixed pitch. So you just wind it back 2350 just because you can. But if you set it free and let it rev at 2600, it's 260 horse. So what's in this plane is a U engine, 2000 RTBO. There's a bit more about that too. A U engine with a 2000 RTBO that turns at 2600 RPM. Prop pitch stops are adjusted and the governor is adjusted, so you have 255 horsepower for takeoff, back it off to 2400 RPM, and it's back at 230 horse. Now the KLR and S engines that were the predecessors to this, those engines all turn at 2600 at 230, and when you back them off, they go to 200 horsepower. So this, at 24, is still 230, and the others are 200, so it's 30 more horsepower in cruise in a U. But the STC in here is called the John Jewel STC, and the RPM is increased to 2600 for takeoff, so it's much more like it was designed to be. It's not bigger, it's not extra cylinders, it's not different compression, it's the same U, and it's 260, 255 horsepower. The TBOs. Everybody says use a 2000 TBO. I've done this before in other videos, but they aren't. The U engine is in 77 to 81 180s, 77 to 85 185s. No, not 77 to 81 180s and 77 to 86 182s. 185s are always 520s except for the early years. So the way you find out if it's a 2000 hour TBO or a 1500 hour TBO is look on the data plate on the engine. It's not necessarily even in the logbook. You look on the data plates right here, top of the block, right there. You can even slide an iPhone in over the oil cooler and take a picture and read it. And it will say 0470U and then in brackets a number. If that number is 1 to 10, it's a 1500 hour TBO. And if it's 10 to 26, it's a 2000 hour TBO. So do not automatically assume all U engines are 2000 hour TBOs. And there's not a lot of differences. Oil pump, some cooling vanes on the cylinders. And if you send in your old 1500 hour U, it comes back as a 2000 hour U. So this is 2000 hours TBO, 260 horsepower in a 79 182 with wet wing 24 volts. So what else has it got? Camber cuff wing. That starts in 1972 with the 182P. So that's the same right through to 86. And this is a wet winged cuffed. And that leading edge cuff, to get really into the detail of it, is a Robertson cuff. So Robertson Stoll invented the profile for the leading edge for their Stoll kit, and Cessna in 72 went, hey, can we have that on our plane? And they said yes. And it's called the camber cuff wing. So that's on this from the factory, and it's a partial Stoll leading edge. So you don't really need a Stoll kit on a 72 or newer Cessna 182, 180, 185, 206. And if you're going to add one, a Horton isn't much of a cuff sticking out on the front compared to the Robertson, so it's an improvement, but it's not as much of an improvement as, say, a Sportsman would be, because a Sportsman protrudes further, adds more square footage, has more lift, and is probably more effective on that wing. So what else on this airframe? Bigger tyres, the beach buggy I call it. The front fork is an air glass oversized fork, and it will hold an 800. The original fork is a 505 tyre, that's an 800. So you can go 5, 6, 7, 8, and the 5 goes in the standard fork, 6 and 7 goes in a heavy fork, and everything above that goes in an air glass, and it's spring steel, U-shape, goes right in the same hole as the old gear, but it just holds a bigger nose wheel. The mains, obviously, there's no fork, so they just go on the end of it. But these are upgrade, just bigger tires, better brakes, better to match it. Because if you just go put it on a nose wheel, you're just going to be up in the air. So all three of them are oversized. It's got new gear leg fairings on it, new paint on it. It's got the high-speed flap, which these P's and Q's and R's have, and you can tell the high-speed flap because the trailing edge of the flap has a bead, a thick bead, so you can put the flap down 140 knots and the second stage at 90, whereas on the planes earlier than this that don't have the bead, it's a 90 knot first stage. So that's factory on this. And then from here back it's a 182, so we don't need to get into too much detail back there apart from the beautiful paint job on it. So let's get into some looking around what happened on the inside. So inside this old 62 180, which may as well be a brand new plane, look at that panel. It's not arch shaped like the cowling would normally be on a plane like this. This is called the next gen panel, made by the same company that builds Cessna 185 type aircraft from the ground up, and it's metal and it's solid and it's bolt in, bolt out. You can take out the whole panel, put the whole thing back in. It's modular. You can add it to any 180, 182, 185 as well if you have one and only want the panel. I mean, all this is incredibly well made, and it's got like this panel here with all these switches in it that is sort of on the surface of it and very modern. It's like being in a King Air, looking, you know, the way everything looks and feels. Thick, nice billet pieces. And then this is an HDX Dynon multifunction screen. It's got synthetic vision, airspeed, altitude, moving map. All the engine is down at the bottom. You can have it engine on the right, map on the left. You can organize it any way you want. The transponder is up in here. You put in the code here. Alt, press it on, turn. I mean, it's just, it's not, I mean, I'm not that IFR and I'm not that good with digital radios, but I had to fly this plane out of San Jose International, and the tower's like squawk, blah, blah, blah. And squawk, where's the transponder? I had to find it, the frequencies, put it all in here. But what a machine. An Avidyne GPS comm here, audio panel with everything in it, music piped through from a Sirius satellite radio. Jackson Dean is currently playing. This is for changing your basic three, like heading bug and your altitude and your barometer are on these three. Autopilot on, here's the autopilot, fully coupled and integrated. A backup comm with the name of the airport that appears next to the frequency, and if you put in the tower frequency, it knows the ground and approach frequencies for the same radio, so they're already on standby. That is an iPad cooling mount for a full-size iPad, and the fan will keep it cool when you're using it. If you remove that, behind it, it's plumbed in with all the electronics and wiring harness already in position for another Dynon HDX. So $4,000, put it in, and you got two of them. But it's just this one's got an iPad in it because the pilot liked to have the iPad. All down here is new as well. Circuit breakers, a little glove box. New McFarlane controls on it. Look at the cowl flaps. A new mechanism under the cowling that just actually works effortlessly for the cowl flaps. Carb heat, throttle prop mixture, alternate static, some vents, handbrake in the same place. Custom, look at this, custom yokes with a personalized monogram Skywagon badge on it, with control wheel steering for the autopilot, push to torque. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Custom made Rosen visors so they don't annoy you with the V-brace. Soros air vents. And up here, the headliner it's not a conventional fabric headliner with hoops. It's actually against the skin of the plane. And it's got soundproofing on it, forward spar, courtesy lights, GoPro mount, air vents, a little pocket up here on both sides for putting in checklists, and the remote for the Sirius satellite radio. You wouldn't want to have to reach out and touch it. And detail like the trim wheel. If you're a Skywagon pilot, you'll know that the trim wheel is just a plastic circle with some grooves in it. That's cast aluminium billet. That can be bought aftermarket for any Skywagon too. Cast aftermarket. Flaps are the same. Rudder pedals are all late model. Intercom jacks here, both kinds. It's just unbelievable playing this. It's like you're buying a brand new plane. So let's say, oh, hang on, here's something to see. You might not see it in the sunlight, but watch this. It's backlit and forward lit and overlit and underlit. So this is it currently in like neutral color. That's white. That's red. There are dome lights everywhere in the plane. Character lights, dome lights, atmosphere lights, courtesy lights, everything LED, all on here. completely dimmable, completely controllable on rear stats, all on this panel over here. But for now, I'm going to turn it off because I'm obviously using up battery power. So radio's off, master off. And then let's have a look around at the rest of the interior. The door, as I said earlier, isn't your regular old 60s 180 door. It's the later style. You've got to release this pin out here. It locks like that. It also has a pin up here in this top corner that locates into the door there. It would be the same as on a like a 172 Cutlass RG or something from the 80s. Both seats articulating and deluxe leather, custom everything. I'll put them forward so we can see the action. Whoa. BAS shoulder harnesses doing their thing. Stowable jump seats, held in very nicely by their own seat belts. So you just unlatch the actual seat belt for the seat, connect that. I won't do it now because you've got to slide it on, but connect that, put that up, move the seat belt to the back, and you got your 2 jump seats. But it's also got the bench that goes in here, the full bench seat. So you take these out and you can have your normal bench seat in it. It comes with it, and it's upholstered like that too. I mean, there's no, it hasn't had any expense spared on it. And then these seat belts just go back on here, hold them up. Extended baggage. Now all Skywagons have, well, 61 185s have it, 61 180s and newer have it. But there's normally a step up of about 8 inches there with a battery under it. So this has had its floor lowered and the extended baggage pushed right to the back and soundproofed, so it's a giant cavern back there. Huge. You could sleep in this thing camping in Idaho. Full length with the seats right the way they are. And then you think, oh, where'd the battery go? Well, the battery's under the cowling in the front, and it's this big and it weighs 4 pounds. Lithium. And it spins that 520, bam. So there's a bit more weight up forward, but you needed it because it lost some weight from the prop because it's an MT. So this plane is very, very well balanced. It's not like it lost 17 pounds of battery from back there and now it's forward C of G. It behaves the way it should. And then you can see the internal structure of the cabin isn't compromised at all by the adding of that third window because it's a factory install from 64 and newer anyway. So it's just been put in the way the factory did it in 64, even though this plane is a 62. McFarlane seat rails all the way through it. You got a rest here that stops the seat sliding back. Those actually are made here at Placerville. Well, they used to be. And they can go on any plane. So they're always a good idea to have those. Door stewards. I mean, I could go on for hours. Look at these. These little handles for climbing in and out are made of paracord. Here, let's get that out of the way. They're made of paracord, and they're also available. They're an STC. If you were to undo one end of that, it would have like 100 feet of paracord on it, and there's 4 of them in the plane. So if you were like to crash in the wilderness and needed to build a tent, it's like a little survival thing, but it's also very strong and practical in the plane. So that's inside this. Up on top, Monarch gas caps. They're like a car gas cap. They go in, screw in, click, and because they're raised, water cannot go in there. So those are excellent gas caps. This plane is standard fuel. It's 65 gallon fuel, but it's still a 470, so it's not a gas hog. And then these little handles for handily climbing up and holding on, they're on float kitted lifting rings. The plane does not have a float kit, but it has the lifting rings because these handles go on it, which are just a nice little extra so that you don't fall off the thing when you're up here. Sportsman stole on the front, vortex generators on the top, tinted glass throughout. I mean, I'm going to have to stop geeking out. Let's go and look at the 182. So here we are in the 79 182, equally well, nearly as well equipped. So it's got a Garmin 750 here, which is nice. Everything on that. So Garmin 750, transponder included in it, audio panel, a transponder there, audio panel, everything's already in it. A navcom, another transponder, and then a GFC 500 autopilot that does absolutely everything for you and costs 30 grand. 2 G5s, both interchangeable. a 6-cylinder engine analyzer, because obviously it's a 6-cylinder Continental engine. This has been blanked off because all that information is now on other instruments over here. Other than that, it's a standard 182Q panel. Yokes, push to torque, trim, all the controls are pretty much 1979 Cessna, but just nice equipment in it. And the RPM, if you look closely at that, if this was a Q Skylane with a U engine in, the green ends at 2400, and on this the green ends at 2550. So it's retacked to allow show the engine's turning at a higher RPM to generate that extra 25 horsepower. Visors, this is original. This is 1979, original leather seats. It's got utility matting on the floor, but this is as good as it gets in a backcountry 182. If you love that 180 and want to go off-roading and backcountry camping, but don't want to fly a tailwheel, this would do the entire job. And weirdly, arguably, that's already got its tail on the ground when you take off. So you gun it and up she goes. This doesn't. So because it's on high, tall, big main tires, it can actually rotate to a higher angle of attack than the 180, unless you put on some massive 35-inch Alaska bush wheels on it. So this, with 10 degrees of flaps, full power, yoke back, you can rotate it to a higher incidence, a higher angle of attack, and climb it out, arguably shorter and steeper than the equivalent engined tail dragger. So the nose wheel going in a rabbit hole and the differences in the prop hitting the ground, they're not really an issue when you have big tires on this, and it can be off-roaded as effectively as the equivalent tail dragger. And without being too anti-180, 185, it's 5 inches wider. Cabin. So the wide cabin appears in 182s in 1962 and goes right to the end to current production today. And the width is here, not here. The door still touches and you're still against the door, but the gap is between the humans. So the rule of thumb is if it's got a rear window looking back over the tail, it's a wide cabin. So there's no such thing as rear window manual flaps in a Skylane. But from this year, 79, right through 8, so there's a little thing that happened. So 81 to 86 182s are the R, excuse me, the R models. The R's can carry like 170 pounds more useful load than the Q's and the P's, but the P and the Q airframe is the same as the R. So there's an STC called the Fresh Pick STC that you apply for, and you just get a piece of paper in the mail, allows you to carry 170 more pounds in a P or a Q to make it the same as an R. And you think, oh, on what grounds? Well, Cessna certified the R model at a higher gross weight than the P and the Q. So a guy called the FAA and said, I want to get an STC for the gross weight increase on a P and a Q. And the FAA are like, on what grounds? And they said, on the grounds it's the exact same airframe as the R and the P and the Q are the same. So he got the STC. So you give him $700, he gives you a bit of paper to tell you can carry 170 more pounds in your P and Q with doing nothing to it. So this has that gross weight increase done. So it's like 36, well, yeah, I have to do the math on it, but it makes the useful load 1,400 pounds, which is incredible on a 182 with a bigger engine. And other little appointments in it are obviously Rosen visors, tinted, slidable, adjustable, inertia reel shoulder harnesses. It looked like it had them from the factory in here, which would have come out over each of the people here, but they've got rid of that and put in these. They lock. And they all had extended baggage, they all had bench seats, they all were the wide cabin. So that's what this plane's like inside. Now everyone's thinking, well, how much are they? And I don't generally talk about how much they are, but people want to know that because the equivalent new plane, if Cessna made that, it would be 800 grand. If Cessna, well, they do. Cessna make new 182s. If you order one, 3 years, 800 grand, whatever, you get one of these. This is $325,000. That's $399,000, $399,000. So for $500,000 off, this plane, same speed, more power, same useful load, same number of seats, same fuel burn, same everything as a new one. Not quite as good a radios, but excellent. With enough change left over to buy a small winery in Fairplay and where we live. So there's an option to buying new and waiting, or making an old one nice. And these two, weirdly I've got them at the same time, are two of probably the nicest versions of themselves that I've ever had. And the price reflects it. But you get what you pay for, because everything's expensive. So people think, ooh, why is it so expensive? 320 grand, that's a lot for an A2. But if you think about it, the engine's 60 or 70, the autopilot's 30, the Garmin 750 is 15, and that's just and then paint's 25. Before you know it, you've got $150,000 worth of options on it on a $150,000 plane. So they are expensive, but mathematically it actually works. That one, you couldn't even do the math on it. If you did the math, or should I say, like I say in England, maths, if you did the maths on that, it's just prohibitive. That thing's unique now. There's only one of them. That's it. That's line. So anyway, we went a bit geeky on it, went into some details and numbers. It was a kind of like looking at nice versions of two planes, model year changes, a little bit of upgrades and backgrounds to them. And I just wanted to, because they were here, show you. So we do videos like this on different models and types, and we do podcasts on interesting pilots and people who come in. We can talk about flying adventures and stuff. And actually we're going to be in Alaska at the beginning of August doing exactly that, talking to people and doing some videoing up there. And it won't be this setting, so there'll be some other stuff going on up there. So subscribe on this link, click on the bell, you'll get notifications of others. I've been very busy, so we've had a bit of a gap, and now I'm trying to get more into it and do much more regular videos. But thanks very much for watching.